told you we wanted to get some intel on what's going on with the RFK site possibly being given back to DC. And our buddy, the award-winning reporter at WUSA TV9 in town, Eric Flack, joins us. So, Eric, get us up to speed. We had the senator on from Montana who's kind of been the fly in the ointment here last week. Can he Louise Lucas this thing and just keep it from happening altogether, or no?
No, I don't think, and it's not procedurally why I don't think it would happen. He is the chair of the committee, and there are procedures in place where he has to be able to. He's the one who puts things on the docket for a vote. But the NFL is such a powerful lobby in Washington and have demonstrated such an interest in getting this RFK site at least back in DC's hands, so it's part of the discussion. I can't see that would ever happen. I also, quite honestly, have a lot of faith in the team and talking to people with the team who see the issue with the Blackfeet tribe as a totally different issue than getting the land back from RFK. And they've been working on this before this with this family, before this senator kind of did this kind of like publicity stunt of a hearing. So like, I guess the technical answer is he does have to put it on the docket to get a vote out of committee, much like Louise Lucas exercised her power to do that. But I don't think that we're there yet in this situation with the RFK site.
Eric, does DC have any money for a stadium?
Not right now. We looked at the figures from the chief financial officer's latest projections. It's a 5-year budget. And after they gave the $500 million to Capital One and Leonsis, there's just not a lot of room left on the city's credit card, as it were, meaning the amount of money they're allowed to borrow in bonds, which is a statutory limit based on the percentage of their budget. And I looked at it today, there's like $234 million in there in like fiscal year 2025. So basically like the next fiscal year, next year. But after that, and these budgets are set for, 5 years at a time, 6 years at a time, it drops dramatically. So at the time you have to be paying off these bonds for a football stadium, and we still don't know what that dollar figure is going to be. There's really no money left in the city's bank account based on the way the DC Council has said you can only take out a certain amount of debt as a city. And remember, there are all these other projects, like there's St. Elizabeth Hospital, there's Capital One, there's like road improvement projects. There's all these things the city are doing. It's not just the football stadium. So Mayor Bowser has said repeatedly, we can pay for them both. They have not answered the question as to how. And right now, if you look at the paperwork, if you just look at the ledger, the money is not there.
So what will change then, Eric? And why shouldn't I assume that the stadium won't end up in DC?
Well, I mean, I guess, and I've been listening to your callers, and they've been pretty astute. And we've talked about this as well. Politicians always seem to find money miraculously. There are mechanisms, and I did a piece and I interviewed Jack Evans, who's a former DC council person, and he was the one who kind of spearheaded the Nats deal and how we paid for that. And I asked him, and he actually is also one of the consultants. The city paid $400,000 collectively to study how to fund the stadium, study that they have yet to release, even though they've had it for 2 months, but that's another issue altogether. He said tax increment financing, which is where you set up a special taxing district around the stadium. And I'm not going to get into the X's and O's of it because it's pretty complicated, but basically it says we expect the tax base in that area to rise because of the stadium. And that money is what is going to go towards paying off our debt on the stadium. The problem is I don't understand why that wouldn't count against just this other debt issue where there's only so much debt they're allowed to take out at one time. And I'm asking the city to explain that to me, and they haven't. But, the city says they can do it. There are creative ways when you start talking about, well, maybe part of what the city contributes is in transportation costs. Is there then way? Because the infrastructure is going to need a ton of work. And that's actually very, that's a huge chunk of money when it comes to building a stadium. Is that something that can be counted as the city's contribution? And is that a different pot of money than the straight bond debt, which they've been racking up doing all these other projects, including Capital One? So they're going to have to get creative, but people who are behind it, the politicians who are behind it, continue to tell me they can figure out a way. They haven't explained to us how that is.
Yeah, Eric, super quick here from your piece. Jack Evans talking about him. His consulting firm was one of two DC paid a total of $400,000 to study how DC could fund a new Commander Stadium. Evans said the study, which focused on successful stadium funding models locally and nationally, was completed in mid-March. But months later, the DC government still hasn't released the results. Now, forgive me, I know we're usually used to this well-oiled machine that is the DC government doing everything correct all the time and nailing it. But why haven't they released the results? What gives there? Is there, do they not like what he said consulting-wise? Like, what's that about?
There's no way. They had the home team do this study. Jack Evans and his firm does this for across the country. Mm-hmm. They actually have been working with the A's a bunch. And there's another firm in on it as well. He's like the most pro stadium. We'll find a way to pay for it. DC pays off its stadiums quicker than other municipalities do. Guy. So he's the flag waving stadium guy. So whatever that study said is going to be wildly positive. So why they haven't released it, and I've put in an open records request for it. I've been trying to get it. I'm very confused as to why they don't want to release it unless they have some planned rollout that we're unaware of. But it's all very mysterious to me.
Eric, good information. We appreciate you hopping aboard. Thank you.
Thanks, fellas. See you.
You got it. There's Eric Flack, Channel 9 in D.C., the latest on the land that D.C. wants back so that potentially the Commanders can build a stadium at the RFK site.